Hello guys, welcome back. So this is part 2 of the first video we were watching. Just to kind of a brief summary, we were discussing having a family member with addiction, and I was talking about my dad and how he has an alcohol addiction. So let me just jump right into it. So I was talking to my mom about this other day, about how because we were having just one of those days where we were just frustrated with everything going on. And I was just like, well, it makes so much sense that my dad is the way he is because of the way he was raised. And the reason I say that is because his father drank, and my grandpa's father also drank. So it's kind of like a cycle. It's like the normal of the family, they all drink, and so that he thinks that it's normal. And I can see that. I mean, he grew up that way. You see your parents do something, you think that's normal. That's just what happens in that family. And I also remember him telling me one time that he witnessed an unfortunate event, which was his little brother dying in front of him. He got hit by a car. And I can't even imagine how traumatizing that should be for someone. But it happened. And unfortunately, it was very rough for everyone in the family. And he was like 11, I think. He was like 11 or 10 years old. I don't really quite remember. And obviously, I think his little brother was maybe like 3 or 5 or somewhere around there. And he said like he remembers my grandma crying a lot every day, really, but in her room and all that, and everybody else was kind of just an autopilot. Like everybody just kind of still went about their lives, and my grandma did in her own way too. She just kind of like, I guess she kept it to herself when she was crying. Like she didn't say anything to anyone, just kind of went to her room, and that's where she did it. She cried. And after that, he said nobody talked to him about it. And I can't even imagine, first of all, the pain that they're all going through, but also the fact that nobody discussed it with him. I mean, of course, that I would assume that would also be a factor in why he drinks. Because he's also not a good communicator, if I may add that to this. And I'm going to get to a point when I get to that part about it. But I can, like I was saying, I can see how that could affect someone. I mean, nobody talked to him about it. That's what he said. He's like, nobody talked to me about it. And, and then I've gone to my grandma's house and I've seen how it looks. There's no pictures of him. There's like no trace. Like, it's like nothing ever happened. Everything's just wiped right off. Like, nothing ever existed. Like, and I can see that. I mean, it's painful to have to see that all the time, if there's a picture up there or something. But I also don't think that the way that it was done was the right way. You can't just pretend something didn't happen, not talk about it, and think that's not going to affect everyone. And, I can't talk about everyone's story on this. I can only talk about my dad, but I can tell you that for sure everyone is definitely affected. I mean, obviously not everybody sees it because, like I said, it's like when I was talking about me. Sometimes you don't see how something can affect you because I think radically we think, oh, we're going to be just crying all the time, or we're not going to be able to do anything. It's not necessarily true. Everybody's different. Sometimes something can affect you and can still be, functional. You can still do everything. It's kind of like autopilot is what I like to describe it as. You're kind of just going with emotions. You do everything as you're supposed to still, but it's like there's like nothing. It's just like no emotion almost. At least not those deep ones from like whatever occurred. And I definitely see that the family's been affected with that in all different ways. And I've seen it because I do observe a lot. I'm very observant about that. Like I keep it quiet, but like I am very aware of when I see things happen. So that's why I know that the family's definitely been affected. Just in different ways, obviously. And so this is the way my dad was affected. One, you see your dad drinking, so you think that's normal already. Two, he saw a tragic event happen and nobody ever talked to him about it. Three, he's not a good communicator because of that. Because nobody ever talked to him about anything in the family. Like, no, they're not good at communication. And they kind of like, if something happens, you kind of just pretend it didn't, and you never discuss it. And I noticed that because, you know, when like the whole thing happened with my dad and leaving the house and all that kind of stuff, when we did try to talk about the subject, we kind of just got the brush where it's just like, okay, yeah, okay. Like I can tell you just really don't want to talk about it, you know? And I get it. It's an uncomfortable thing to talk about, but that's what needs to happen more. And I think that that's a message we should all spread. Sometimes you need to have those uncomfortable conversations because at one point or another, they will lurk up. It's like everything. It's like when you have a secret, you know? You can't hide the truth forever. At one point, it will see the light and it will come out. It's just that simple. And so leading to the part about the communication, when he's sober, he doesn't talk at all. Honestly, not a word. Not a word. At least not with us, really. He can be there for hours sitting with you and he won't say a word. Not at all, nothing. But when he's drinking, he is a novel of things he has to say. He starts talking about every little thing. You don't want to hear him? Oh, he'll follow you and he'll talk to you about it. He will not stop talking. And it just goes to show how this, like the alcohol for him, it's kind of like a mask of he can be whoever he wants to be. He feels like he's the strongest, like he can do anything and he's unstoppable. And so that's why he's so talkative. He can express every emotion he's been suppressing every other day when he's sober. And I don't even just take that as like I'm just taking a guess at this. He's actually said it one time. He's like, well, you know, the only reason that I can be so talkative and express how I feel is because I am drinking. It calms me down. It makes me feel like I'm capable of it. It takes away his fear. His being a coward, it goes away once he drinks. Then he's brave enough to express everything. And it just goes to show you. I mean, he comes from a family where they don't talk about anything. So, you know, how are you supposed to know how to communicate if you're not raised in that kind of way? And I want to make something very, very clear about, you know, who's watching these videos, whether it's family, you know, watching this video or anyone else. I don't want you to think that I'm bashing my family, because I'm not in any way. Everybody raises everyone differently, and I completely understand that. And I'm not saying what they did was wrong. I'm just simply explaining what I've observed, because I don't want to bash my grandma or anyone at all. You know, everybody is different. Their generations are different. You know, you grew up a certain way, and everybody's normal is that for them. You know, your normal is your normal. So I want to make that clear. I don't want to disrespect anyone here at all. I just merely want to talk about this subject. And so I think that's what happened. There's no communication. And going on that note about communication, I just want to make that message spread to the world, honestly. I think communication is so important, because I'm so grateful that I've chosen this field, you know, social work and psychology. Since I was a little girl, I always loved it. And, you know, I just always wanted to help people. I was always so talkative, like, you know, it was great. And so I'm so glad that I chose this profession. I think definitely it's helped me in my own personal life. I think if I didn't know the things that I know because of my profession, I don't think I would have dealt with everything the way that I have. And I mean that because, you know, like therapy, things like that. Like I said, you know, my mom, my dad, they weren't raised that way. They don't believe in therapy because it's not something that they grew up with. You know, generational people think, oh, well, I'm not crazy. Why do I have to go to therapy? Because they think just if you're crazy, you know, you go to therapy. And it's just been generational. That's what it is. It's like the taboo little thing going on. You know, you don't talk about your problems. It's like, you're not crazy. You don't need that. And I'm very glad that I was able to open up their minds. My mom is actually very open to it now, and she's doing fantastic. She is going to therapy also. And I'm so glad that I was able to bring that awareness, you know, to her, because I see it so much in my family, in the older generations, how they have so many problems going on. And A lot of them is because I'm told about, my mom knows a lot about things, or other people tell me about other family members. And then once I know that, once I know their problems and I see how they act, it kind of all just comes together for me. Like it all makes sense. Their behavior, it just makes so much sense to me, you know? And it's just so sad because, the way they were raised, they were always told not to talk about certain topics. Anything that happens in the family stays in the family. And I think that's actually one common denominator that I've seen when it comes to like cultures. Even though all cultures are absolutely different, one thing in common is that they always want to, whatever happens in the family stays in the family. You don't bring embarrassment to your family. Like all these things as a whole, you want to just keep it all to yourself. You don't talk about it, And I just find it so sad that, they went through years of things going on in their lives and they were never able to talk about it with anyone. And even now, I think if I would approach someone who's like 60 years old or 80 years old, which is like my grandmas or my aunts or anyone, if I were to tell them, listen, why don't you go see a therapist or something like that, they'd be like, for what? Like, what? I don't need that stuff. I'm fine. And it's just because that's just the way they were raised. But I think for sure, talking to someone about it would do a lot of good, because I can see that there's so much pain in them. And I can see that for sure, like I can see the pain in someone's eyes, the anger, the resentment. And that's why I just think it's so beautiful that because of my profession and everything around us, I'm very glad that we start making movements about certain things and we start spreading them around, like mental health awareness, all these things are so important. I think that when you have a problem, you need to talk about it with someone. But I also think not just talking, but I think us as a society, we need to be good listeners too. So someone can be comfortable enough to come to us and talk to us about a problem. Because I think that's exactly what the society needs. People don't talk enough and people don't listen enough. And that's why a lot of things happen. And actually, talking about this subject, I watched this really good video, and I feel like once you see the video and everything I talked about, I think it'll make sense too, because so I watched this video. It's called, from a YouTuber also, and she's also in a show, in a talk show. It's Jenny Mai, and she has a show called Hello Honey. And she's sitting there and she talks to her mom, and her mom is discussing about how her father was abusive, physically abusive to her. He would hit her, all that stuff like that. And she was never able to talk about it because, like what I was saying, whatever happens in your family stays in your family. You don't bring embarrassment to your family. And it's just so sad, but I'm so glad that she was able to, now in her life, find that peace of mind that she needs to talk and express everything that happened. But it's so sad that in the moment that had to happen, where she couldn't seek help because it would bring embarrassment to her family. And, because you're not supposed to talk about problems that happen in your family. And the same thing with her own mother. She said, I told my mother to leave him many times, and she said no, because what would the family say? What would other people say about us? They would say, oh, I'm just probably trying to leave my husband for another man. Or, oh, why would I bring embarrassment to my family in that way and leaving him? And it happens a lot. And, and even nowadays it still happens, because a lot of people always, there is still a lot of people who think certain kinds of ways because that's what they've been raised. And other people do change their mind along the way. Everybody's different. But I do hear a lot of stories like that still, where it's like, oh, I don't want to leave him because what are other people going to say? I don't want to bring embarrassment. I don't want to tell people what's going on in my life. I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. And it's so sad, and it breaks my heart when I see people like that they feel that they don't feel safe enough to open up to the world. And then also the world is so judgmental that we don't make it safe for someone to be able to seek help and express how they feel without feeling judged. So I think what I really want to spread, the message I want to spread here is to seek help, talk, express yourself in any kind of way. And not only that, but we need to have good people who listen also, because how can someone feel safe to talk if we're not listening without judgment? So please, guys, just, you know, be aware of that, be good listeners, and like that we can have people be able to express themselves and be able to seek help. And I am going to post a link on underneath this video of the video that I'm talking about, because I think it's just really, it's beautiful, it's so heartwarming, it's, you know, and it just spreads such a good message that, you know, in your life you do need to talk about what's going on, and how we have this old school way of thinking from past generations that you shouldn't talk about certain things, because honestly communication is something that needs to be have in the family. And I'm so glad that I'm able to have that with my mom, and that because of my profession and because, you know, I guess maybe my personality, I don't know, you know, I am so talkative and I communicate so much with my family that me and my mom have like the best relationship. We talk about everything, you know, we don't judge each other. She trusts me because she knows the kind of person I am, because I've told her so much that she doesn't need to doubt me or what I do, because, you know, she knows. And I'm so glad that I have that, and I hope that, you know, throughout the generations that keep going in my family, that continues. I want to keep it that we can always talk and communicate and never feel scared to express how we feel about anything. So just wanted to talk about that, guys. And I do think that there is going to be another video that I wanted to talk about, just more on the subject about, you know, kind of like the problems that can be brought also from having a family member of addiction, meaning, you know, like what if they get in trouble with the law, kind of stuff like that. Because I have heard some stories about other people and how they've had, you know, those kinds of issues with their parent, where they've had to kind of be the one to get them out of jail or something like that has occurred. And I really want to talk about that part too. So I'm going to end the video here, but I will come back and we will talk more about that. I'm going to do a third video, and then after that I'm going to start talking about different kinds of other subjects, because, you know, I feel like, you know, one of them is addiction, obviously, and that's really important because, like I said, in my experience, but there's also other things I wanted to talk about, like, you know, depression, anxiety, you know, self-esteem, all those other things I think are very, very important, and I also want to start discussing that in my other videos. So just be on the lookout for a part 3 of just this one, and then after that, we're going to move on to other things that I want to talk about. So thank you guys so much. And like I said, I'm going to have the link underneath this video from the Jenny Mai video of her channel. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.